I'm 61 years old, and I need to tell you something that will change how you see the person sleeping next to you tonight. Something that nobody warned me about when I was building my life, trusting the woman I married, believing that decades together meant something. I was wrong about all of it. I lost 12 years of my life, not to war, not to prison, not to illness in the way most people understand it. I lost 12 years to the woman I trusted most. The woman who made my coffee every morning. The woman who managed my schedule, my medications, my meals. The woman who smiled at me across the dinner table while slowly taking everything I had. 12 years. Think about that for a moment. That's longer than some marriages last, longer than childhood, longer than most people spend in any single job. I lost all of it lying in a hospital bed while the world moved on without me, while my wife moved on without me, while everything I'd built was quietly dismantled and sold off piece by piece. When you're young, you think time is infinite. You think there's always tomorrow, always next year, always another chance. You don't realize that someone can steal time from you, not metaphorically, literally. They can take years of your life and leave you with nothing but paperwork and questions and a body that forgot how to walk. I used to believe in certain things. I believed that marriage meant partnership. I believed that trust was built over years and couldn't be broken easily. I believed that the person who knew you best would never use that knowledge against you. I believed that if you worked hard, played fair, and loved honestly, life would protect you somehow. I don't believe any of that anymore. When I finally opened my eyes in 2022, the world had changed. There was a global event I'd slept through, technology I didn't recognize, a president I'd never heard of. My business was gone, my house was gone, my bank accounts were empty. My name was still the same, but my life had been erased. I was a ghost returning to a world that had already buried me. People ask me sometimes if I'm angry, if I want revenge, if I spend my days thinking about what she did and how I'll make her pay. The honest answer is no. Anger requires energy I don't have anymore. Revenge requires believing that justice exists, and I'm not sure it does. What I feel is something colder than anger, something quieter, something that sits in your chest and never leaves. Men don't collapse all at once. That's the thing nobody tells you. We are dismantled slowly, piece by piece, decision by decision, signature by signature. A man signs a paper because his wife asks him to. He gives her access because she's his partner. He trusts her with the details because he's busy with the big picture. And one day he wakes up, if he wakes up at all, and realizes he was never the one in control. He just thought he was. This is that story. And if you're a man who trusts someone completely, who's given access without thinking twice, who believes that loyalty is guaranteed by years together, you need to hear it. Not because I want sympathy. Not because I want you to feel sorry for me, but because what happened to me could happen to anyone. It could happen to you. And by the time you realize it, you might not have 12 years left to lose. My name is Thomas Carraway, and this is how I lost everything to the woman who promised to love me. Let me take you back to 2008. I was 47 years old. I'd been married to Catherine for 23 years. We had what everyone called a perfect life. I ran a consulting firm, 30 employees, government contracts, the kind of business that doesn't make headlines but makes money. Catherine managed the home. That's how we described it. She handled the household, the schedules, the social calendar. She was charming at dinners. Everyone loved her. What I didn't notice was how slowly she'd inserted herself into everything else. It started small. She offered to help with the books when my accountant retired, just temporarily. But temporary became permanent. Then came the signatures. Joint accounts made sense. Power of attorney made sense. She was my wife. You trust me, right? Of course I did. She knew my passwords, my schedule, which days I had important meetings. She knew everything. Control doesn't start with money, it starts with access. And by 2008, she had access to all of it. The symptoms began in the spring of 2009. At first, headaches. Nothing severe, just persistent. I blamed stress, then dizziness, memory slips, forgetting names I'd known for years, walking into rooms and forgetting why I was there. Catherine was wonderful through all of it. She pushed me to see doctors, she scheduled appointments, she started preparing special meals, supplements, smoothies every morning, vitamins at night. She said I needed to take better care of myself. I noticed something strange. The symptoms appeared in patterns. They were worse after nights at home. They peaked before important business events. When I traveled alone for work, I felt better. When I came home, the fog returned. I mentioned this to Catherine once. She said it was obviously stress. The house was my safe space. I was finally relaxing enough for my body to show how exhausted it really was. I believed her. If your weakness benefits someone else, it's no longer just weakness. It's leverage. The collapse happened in October of 2010. I was in a meeting with a potential client. Government contract, 6 figures, important. I'd prepared for weeks. I was mid-presentation when the room started spinning. I remember gripping the table. I remember someone asking if I was okay. I remember saying, yes, I'm fine, and then nothing. I woke up in an ambulance. Catherine was there, holding my hand, tears streaming down her face. The paramedics were calm. They used words like cardiac event and stress response, and we're taking you to the hospital now. The doctors ran tests. They found nothing conclusive. My heart was fine. My brain scans were unremarkable. They used that word a lot, unremarkable. They said it was likely exhaustion, burnout. They recommended rest. Catherine agreed. She said she'd been worried about this for months. She said I'd been pushing myself too hard. She said I needed to step back from the business, just temporarily, just until I recovered. 2 weeks later, I collapsed again. This time, I didn't wake up for 12 years. The medical term is persistent vegetative state. The common term is coma. The reality is something in between. I was alive, technically. My heart beat. My lungs breathed. But I wasn't there, not in any way that mattered. The doctors told Catherine I was unlikely to wake up. They gave her statistics, percentages. The longer someone stays under, the lower the chances. After the first year, they told her to prepare for permanence. She became my legal decision maker, power of attorney, medical proxy. Everything I'd signed over years ago now gave her complete control. She decided my treatment. She decided my care level. She decided whether I continued or stopped. The business couldn't wait for someone who might never return. She sold my shares. She explained to my partners that she needed to focus on my care, that running a company wasn't possible while managing a husband on life support. They understood. They were sympathetic. They bought her out at a fair price. The house went next. Too many memories, she said. Too painful. She moved somewhere smaller. The money from the sale went into accounts I couldn't access, managed by a woman I couldn't question. I was breathing. But legally, financially, socially, I was finished. What Catherine did during those 12 years, I learned later, piece by piece, document by document. She called herself a widow, not legally, but socially. She told people I was gone. She wore black to gatherings. She accepted condolences. She started a new relationship 3 years after my collapse. A man named Richard. They traveled together, they bought property together, they built a life on the foundation of everything I'd lost. She moved money slowly, never in amounts that would trigger attention, small transfers, strategic sales. By the time I woke up, there was almost nothing left with my name on it. She rewrote our history. To anyone who asked, I was a workaholic who'd destroyed his own health, a cautionary tale, a man who'd chosen his career over his family and paid the ultimate price. She was the devoted wife who'd stood by him until the end. The tragedy wasn't what she'd done. The tragedy was that I hadn't listened to her sooner. Predators don't hurry. They wait until resistance disappears. And I had no resistance left. Her name was Elena. She was a night shift nurse at the long-term care facility where I spent my last 4 years. I don't remember much from those years, obviously, but I've read her notes since. She was consistent, professional. She came in at 11, left at 7. She checked vitals. She adjusted equipment. She talked to patients even when they couldn't respond. She noticed things others missed, irregularities in my file, inconsistencies between what the record said and what she observed. Visits from Catherine that became less frequent, then stopped entirely. Medication orders that seemed unusual for my condition. She didn't accuse anyone. She just documented. She asked questions through proper channels. She flagged concerns to supervisors who didn't always listen. She kept doing her job night after night for years. I didn't know any of this at the time. I didn't know anything. But she was there, the only constant in 12 years of absence. I woke up on a Tuesday, March 15th, 2022. The first thing I remember is light, too bright, then sound, machines beeping, then a voice, calm and steady, saying my name. Thomas. Thomas, can you hear me? It was Elena. End of her shift. She was the first person I saw in 12 years. The next hours were chaos. Doctors, tests, questions I couldn't answer. My body was weak. My mind was slower. I couldn't process what they were telling me. The year, the duration, the lost time. Catherine wasn't there. No one could reach her immediately. When they finally did, hours later, she sounded surprised, confused. She said she'd visit soon. She didn't come for 3 days. I didn't wake up to my wife. I woke up to paperwork. Recovery took months. Learning to walk again. Learning to speak clearly. Learning to use technology that hadn't existed when I fell asleep. Learning that the world had continued without me and hadn't noticed my absence. Physical therapy every day. Speech therapy 3 times a week. Muscles that had forgotten how to work. A mind that struggled to process basic information. I was like a child learning everything from scratch, except I had memories of being capable, competent, in charge. The gap between who I'd been and who I'd become was almost too painful to face. The discoveries came slowly, each one worse than the last. My business sold, my accounts empty, my house gone, my wife living with another man in a property that had been purchased with money that used to be mine, my reputation rewritten, my story changed to make me the villain of my own life. I hired a lawyer. It was the first real decision I'd made in over a decade. He started pulling records, medical files, financial statements, transaction histories, insurance claims, every document that had my name on it from the past 12 years. The lab work told the story. Old samples, preserved from my hospital stays, tests that had been run but never flagged, traces of substances that shouldn't have been there, compounds that build up slowly, compounds that cause exactly the symptoms I'd experienced. Headaches, confusion, collapse. I'd been microdosed for at least 18 months before my final collapse. Small amounts, impossible to detect unless you're looking for them. Administered at home, in the meals and drinks prepared by someone who loved me, designed to look natural, designed to look like stress. The investigation took 2 years. The legal proceedings are still ongoing. What I can tell you is this: some assets were recovered, not all, not most, but some. Catherine faced consequences. I won't detail them here. The courts will handle what the courts handle. There was no celebration, no victory speech, no moment where I stood in front of her and demanded answers. There was just paperwork, depositions, evidence presented in rooms where everyone spoke calmly about the systematic destruction of my life. Betrayal isn't loud, it's administrative. It's signatures and transfers and documents filed in triplicate. It's the quiet machinery of someone taking everything while you're not watching. Elena and I still talk, not every day, but often. She left the night shift eventually. Different position now, better hours. We meet for coffee sometimes. We talk about ordinary things, weather, books, the slow process of rebuilding a life that was taken apart while I wasn't looking. She didn't save me. I want to be clear about that. She's not a hero in this story. There are no heroes in this story. She's just someone who was present when presence mattered. Someone who noticed when no one else was paying attention. Someone who stayed. She didn't rescue me. She just stayed. Sometimes that's enough. I'm 61 years old. I have maybe 20 years left if I'm lucky. 20 years to rebuild what took someone else 12 years to dismantle. I think about what I would tell my younger self. The version of me who signed those papers, who gave that access, who trusted without verifying, who confused peace with safety. Here's what I've learned. Never confuse peace with safety. A quiet home isn't proof of a loyal partner. Comfort can be manufactured. Calm can be chemical. Access is more dangerous than control. I worried about who made decisions. I should have worried about who had keys. If you disappear and life improves for someone, that's not love. Watch what happens when you're weak. Watch who benefits from your absence. That will tell you everything. Men don't need paranoia. They need boundaries. Trust is earned through transparency, not demanded through history. 20 years of marriage meant nothing. Documentation would have meant everything. Survival teaches faster than therapy. I learned more in 2 years of recovery than in 50 years of living. Pain clarifies. Loss educates. I don't recommend it, but I don't deny it either. I didn't wake up to start over. Starting over implies a clean slate. There's no clean slate here. There's just what remains and what was taken and the slow work of understanding the difference. I woke up to stop being disposable, to stop being something that could be erased, drained, replaced, forgotten, to stop being a resource instead of a person, to stop being managed instead of loved. If this story made you uncomfortable, if it made you think about the access you've given someone, if it made you look differently at the person managing your life while you're busy living it, good. That discomfort is a warning. That discomfort might be the only thing standing between you and 12 years of nothing. That discomfort might save you 12 years, or it might save your life.